Oh my god, why is it so messy? Because I don't like this end. Hey you guys. Here we go. Here we go. Alright. Hi everyone. Today I am going to talk about, why do I sound so fucking boring? Let's get Nova out here. Nova. I need to spread awareness about this issue because I find America, when they get hold of a popular opinion or an idea, they fucking run with it. And they run really far with it. And if you go against it, you're like vilified, you're ostracized, you're alienated, you're looked upon as you're bad, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Until shit hits the fan and it proves to be harmful or whatever, and it becomes popular knowledge and more and more people realize that it's wrong, and then they accept it. But sometimes that can take decades. For example, look at in the past. Okay, this is something that directly relates to the issue I'm talking about today. Once upon a time, in the early 2000s, late 90s, it was common practice and considered good, responsible practice to neuter and spay dogs and cats early, like before they hit maturity. So for females, before they hit before their first heat cycle, males like before they were a year old, like before even 6 months old, which is really early. When we had Beethoven, we had neutered him quite, not late, but later than normal. We neutered him like when he was almost a year old. Zero health issues. Later on, he got hip dysplasia and all that stuff, but that's quite normal for the breed. And then Napoleon, we were recommended by the vet, because it was popular back then, to neuter before he was 6 months old. We had him done at like nearly almost as soon as we got him. Maybe he was 5 or 6 months old. No more than 6 months. We got him at like 3, 4 months old. So yeah, although he had an amazing disposition, amazing personality, that was him. He was plagued, and I mean plagued, with issues his whole life. Hip issues, joint issues, ligament issues, skin issues, just plagued him. We spent thousands, like my mother spent extortionate amounts of money trying to help him get rid of the symptoms, cure his discomfort, trying to cure these issues, and nothing worked. And he just had to live with it. Albeit he lived till 15, a lot of those years he spent dealing with all this shit, and it was hard. Later, fast forward later, it comes out that that was bad practice to neuter before maturity, and now that's common knowledge. And while you'll still find some vets say, oh yeah, or some people have this notion that you should be neutering early, it's common knowledge, and you can Google it, that it is not recommended. It is scientifically, medically proven that early neutering causes catastrophic effects in dogs. I will also link below to Dr. Becker. She's a vet who was of this idea and of this practice when it was popular, because that's what she was told. When you're told stuff in medical school, what are you going to say? No? Like, you just follow along like a sheep because that's common practice, when it was really fucking terrible. And I respect Dr. Becker so much, because she's one of the few vets who took responsibility and totally admitted that she was wrong. But you understand why she was wrong, because that was the American thing at the time and everyone was doing it. She said on camera that she basically had destroyed hundreds and thousands of dogs' lives because of this. And I think it's completely respectable and honorable that she came out and publicly apologized, and I will link her video below. My mother and I co-parented all our pugs, right? Because I lived in the house too, and we observed Napoleon go through the textbook catastrophic results of early neutering, and while Beethoven basically had almost no problems. So while I'm not saying you should never neuter or spay, this is not the point of my video. I'm saying it shouldn't be an automatic, no-brainer, go-to, an automatic, mandatory thing that is pushed on you for every single dog or cat that you adopt. It shouldn't be like that. And there's a reason why neuter and spay is completely illegal in some European countries, like I think it's Denmark and Sweden or Switzerland. But you have to have like a medical emergency and a reason, like proof that you need to do this for your animal, for its well-being, because it's considered unnecessary and harmful in a lot of countries. European dogs tend to be healthier than American dogs. Also, if you really Google, obviously that's the thing with everything. When something's a popular opinion, when you Google it, you're going to find a majority of people going in line with this opinion. But then you'll get the few vets who are coming out and with medical evidence, with scientific articles, are telling people, you really need to think about this. So while I say, in certain situations for sure, spaying and neutering is the way to go, because sometimes putting the dogs at risk for other things is you have to weigh out the risks. There are risks with both things. There are risks with leaving your dog intact, and there are risks with neutering and spaying. However, if you really look at the evidence and the statistics, there are greater risks involved with neutering and spay than risks leaving them intact. The problem with leaving them intact is, amongst American mentality, is we don't want to deal with periods. We don't want to deal with actually having to be a responsible parent. We don't want to actually have to train properly and spend more time and effort parenting a dog or a cat. We're going to look in these articles, and I'm going to read to you these scientific facts, okay? This is not feeling based. I used to be of that group, neuter, spay, because that's what we're told in America, and you just follow it. But Nova being our third pug that we raised, my mum and I were a lot more cautious about what we were giving to her, what she was exposed to. Heartworm, flea tick medication, a lot of that is so terrible for your dogs, and there are countless stories of dogs being poisoned or dying from these treatments because they're toxic. And would you put that on your child? Why is it okay to put on a dog? Yeah, if your dog is out in the woods all the time, perhaps that's something that you have to weigh out the risks, whether it's worth it. Putting your dog at risk of being exposed to chemicals and possible sickness or other kind of these toxic chemicals over a tick bite or something like that, then a lot of those medications don't even work 100% of the time anyway. So is it really worth it? Unless it's doing something 100% of the time. That's what we had to kind of weigh out as well. We would rather be vigilant parents and just check her every day and use natural treatments over chemical. People comment all the time how healthy and how amazing she is. She's not on anything. She's intact, and we're just very responsible with her. And let's get into these facts.
As humans, our society is not perfect. We really need to always be learning more and more, because there are still so many things we don't know about the world, about animals, and this is why my attitude has significantly changed. Once upon a time, I did jump on the bandwagon because that was the ideology in America, where we are so pro-spay and pro-neuter, we don't even think about anything else. A lot of the articles, a lot of the statistics are overblown and they're exaggerated. There are more and more vets coming out, especially holistic vets, all natural vets, that are lobbying against this mentality that America has got hold of. This video isn't made to bash people who support neuter and spay, but it's to raise awareness that it shouldn't be an automatic, no-brainer kind of decision. You are removing vital organs, and this affects your animals so significantly. I don't even think people understand how much they're changing their bodies, their anatomy, everything by doing this procedure. While I'm not against spaying and neutering, as there are times and places for them, it shouldn't be one of those things that is automatic. That's my issue. In this country, everyone just does it immediately without thinking because that's what they've been told. They don't want to deal with people not being responsible parents and unwanted pregnancies and population control, so they go to this whole mentality like this is the best, absolute best thing you can do for your dog, when it isn't really like that. If you care for the health of your dog, you would do shitloads more research on what you're actually doing, and it really varies between a dog's breed, the lifestyle, everything. When you start to really dive into the information that's out there, it starts to look like pick your poison. There's risks to keeping your dog intact and there's risks to spaying and neutering them. But let's look at these risks, and I'm going to be telling you guys the actual facts, medically backed and scientifically backed facts for you guys today. Sometimes it's not easy to find because the problem is a majority of websites will just take the popular common opinion, and a lot of the time it's not always the most accurate. So these are from articles that are written or studies that have been done by doctors and scientists, and I will link all these sources below for you so you can have a look yourself, and if you're thinking about it you can really put more thought into it. All I can tell you though is that Nova, we've chose to raise her holistically, and she is by far the most healthiest, well-rounded, adjusted dog I've ever had. Her coat is so soft. Everyone mentions that. They're like, oh my god, she's so soft, she's so silky. I've never met a pug who has a coat like that, and it's because they've never met a pug who was not spayed. I could not believe when I read that it also stops the natural self-cleansing oils in the fur, and this is why a lot of spayed and neutered dogs have skin issues. Tons and tons of dogs have skin issues, and it's really not rocket science why that happens, because when you're spaying or neutering, you're affecting that kind of biology with the skin, and then when you're affecting the skin, you're affecting the fur. So I will be reading out the positive and negative effects of risk in spay. It's for you to decide, and I encourage you and I implore all of you dog and cat parents to really research and look at all the alternative approaches, look at the statistics in other countries of intact dogs, and just weigh out and balance on what you think is best for your dog, because it really is not a one-size-fits-all. It should not be a one-size-fits-all, and it's something that should have a lot of thought and consideration before choosing to cut off your dog's organs. So on the positive side, we're going to talk about neutering male dogs. The pros of neutering male dogs: eliminates the small risks of dying from testicular cancer. However, this risk is less than 1%. Reduces the risk of non-cancerous prostate disorders. Reduces the risk of perineal fistulas. Now I am going to list the negative effects of neutering male dogs. If done before 1 year of age, it significantly increases the risk of osteosarcoma, which is bone cancer. Increases the risk of hemangiosarcoma. Triples the risk of hypothyroidism. Increases the risk of progressive geriatric cognitive impairment. Triples the risk of obesity. Quadruples the small risk of prostate cancer. Doubles the risk of urinary tract cancers. Increases the risk of orthopedic disorders. Increases the risk of adverse reactions to vaccines. For female dogs, it's a lot more complicated. Of course, isn't it always, even for humans? Different breeds are more at risk than other breeds to different things. It's very complicated. On the positive side, the pros of spaying female dogs are as follows. If done before 2.5 years of age, it greatly reduces the risk of mammary cancer, the most common malignant tumours in females. Nearly eliminates the risk of pyometra, which otherwise would affect about 23% of intact dogs. However, pyometra kills less than 1% of female dogs And if a dog gets it, it's actually quite a simple, straightforward emergency spay. Reduces the risk of perennial fistulas. Removes the very small risk of ovarian, uterine, and cervical tumours. However, this risk is less than 0.5%. On the negative side, these are the cons of spaying female dogs. Like the male counterparts, if done before 1 year of age, it greatly increases the risk of osteosarcoma. This is bone cancer. Increases the risk of splenic hemangiosarcoma and cardiac hemangiosarcoma, a form of cancer and a major cause of death in some breeds. Triples the risk of hypothyroidism. Increases the risk of obesity. Causes urinary spay incontinence to up to 20% of female dogs. You guys don't know what that is? That's when they can't hold it, and that happens anyway when they're older, but the spaying will increase their risks early. Increases the risk of persistent and reoccurring urinary tract infections. Increases the risk of recessed vulva, vaginitis, and vaginal dermatitis. Doubles the risk of urinary tract tumors. Increases the risk of orthopedic disorders. Increases the risk of adverse reactions to vaccines. So you have to really be careful about people just spewing all these numbers and claims when they don't have anything to back it up. You can find a lot of veterinary written articles, scientific based articles, research based articles all over the world about the risks of spay and neuter. In America though, it's just so easy to get caught up in this common and popular notion because everyone's just always preaching all the time, and you're not really thinking. So I really give kudos to the dog parents out there that really put more thought into what they're doing to their dog when they do this. And as I've said before, I'm not against spaying neuter. I'm not here to bash it, but I'm saying it shouldn't be something that just automatically is done just because you're adopting a dog. Also, there have been more recent studies debunking previous studies about the positive effects of neuter and spay because they didn't take a whole bunch of other factors into account. So this is an area where it's still developing and it's still new and we're still learning. But just because something is common practice doesn't make it good practice. Again, I will reiterate what happened with early neuter spay. That was considered one time the best thing for your dogs, and now it's known as terrible practice. And you'll see evidence all over the internet. Vets admit it now too. It's something that took decades for America to kind of accept that what was once considered good practice is now bad practice, and this is why we should always be very vigilant and very aware and always be so careful about what we're doing to our dogs. They're like our children. Pyometra is used often as a reason to spay, but you have to look at the numbers. Only 4% of dogs' cases of pyometra actually leads to death, and only less than 1% of dogs actually die from pyometra. So it's something that is very low risk. And again, you have to weigh out the factor. Is it worth opening the door to all these other risks to prevent something that is low risk that will probably never happen? And I've mentioned a lot of times in this hemangiosarcoma. What is it? Well, it's a common bone cancer in dogs. It is a major cause of death in some breeds. Age-matched case control study, spayed female dogs were found to have 2.2 times higher risk of splenic hemangiosarcoma compared to intact females. A retrospective study of cardiac hemangiosarcoma risk factors found a more than 5 times greater risk in spayed female dogs compared to intact female dogs, and a 1.6 times higher risk in neutered male dogs than to intact male dogs. And it suggested that a protective effect of sex hormones against hemangiosarcoma, especially in females. In breeds where hemangiosarcoma is an important cause of death, the increased risk associated with spay and neuter is likely that should factor into decisions on whether or when to sterilize a dog. And all this I am getting from this website here, and it's very informative, called Dogs Naturally, and I will link this below, and I will also link all the other medical and science sources below where I got my information from. The point of this video is to just shine light onto something that is a huge deal that America kind of overlooks and then wonders why their dog is plagued with issues later on in life. This isn't a one size fits all, like I said. You have to weigh out the benefits and the risks for spay and neuter, and it varies from dog to dog. And the breed has an effect, the age, the sex, the lifestyle, and the individual issues. I mean, there are exceptions with everything, right? Exceptions with everything. But I'm just saying it shouldn't be just this automatic thing. So much thought should be put into this. I have myself witnessed the horrible effects that it had on Napoleon. Napoleon was one of my pug brothers. Though he lived long, a lot of his life, you know, they say, oh, you know, spay and neuter elongates the life, but at the same time, what's the quality of life they're having? And also, the numbers are affected too. A lot of the intact dogs that they were also studying are like strays. So, you know, lifestyle has so much to do with it. So that finding that spay and neuter can elongate, leaving your dog intact also can elongate the life. It just depends. It really depends. And I know it's not an easy decision, but as responsible and loving dog parents, it's a decision that should not be taken lightly. Napoleon had the typical textbook woolly fur, and that happens especially in early neutered male dogs. His fur was very coarse. It smelled easily. We had to bathe him more because his skin and his fur, it was just constant problems. He was plagued with skin and fur issues his entire life. And I'm only finding out now that because of the early neuter, it just plagued him with issues. He also had the elongated bones, that is textbook results of early neuter. So that's why he was so tall. And then his joints, his hips, his knees, they were always popping out, like since he was a puppy. And ever since we had that surgery, he was the one that was he just had to, it was sad when I think about it because we spent so much money on him, and it could have probably been avoided if we didn't get him neutered. So this video comes from my heart, and it's something that I really urge and implore you all to do, is just to do your research and to think about it. And before you go doing something so drastic, really look at the factors and the numbers and really understand why there are European countries who deem this procedure illegal. There's an article that I would like you to look at called "Dogs Are Not Here for Our Convenience." And this is the thing. It really, really frustrates me when so many American dog parents have this ideology like, oh, you know, they just want the easy way out. They don't want to parent. They don't want to take the effort and the time and the patience to properly raise a dog and then wonder why their dog has an endless amount of behavioral issues because they didn't parent properly. So about, you know, the whole, spaying and neutering, it lowers their aggressiveness and this and that, it's totally not proven. And I will tell you, the majority of fixed dogs I have met have been the most aggressive. So, and I've met intact dogs that have been so calm and so well adjusted. It's all to do with parenting. So under here it says spaying and neutering puppies shouldn't be standard policy, and it isn't automatically the responsible choice either, and it goes into details. Did you know that in Norway it's actually illegal to spay and neuter your dog unless it's an emergency, like it's a medical emergency? And in Sweden, less than 7% of dogs are spay and neuter, and none of these countries have population issues. They don't have a population issue with everyone breeding whatever. In Switzerland, they have a law that protects dogs from spay and neuter because of they consider it cruel, the effects that the procedure may have, and then the aftermath of what they can experience. So why are other countries so vastly different from the ideology in America? Just think of America though. all the times they were wrong about something. And the way society is here is so tribalist. So it's very sad that the parents who are really truly looking into research and looking into this data, because they are truly responsible parents, are the ones being vilified and ostracized by society because it's not in line with a majority opinion. But open your eyes, things are changing, and more vets are coming out and speaking out about this. I'm still learning more about this because we were still kind of on the fence. We knew early spaying was bad, but we didn't quite rule it out completely. But then now, as more research is being done and more information is surfacing, we are leaning towards just leaving her intact. She's perfect. She has no issues. I would feel terrible if we had the surgery done and she develops all kinds of issues. Her coat is beautiful. She's so soft, we can't stop touching her. She feels like silk. People tell me all the time she's the softest pug ever. It's because she was not spayed. So, and that's a fact. When you spay or neuter your pets, it alters everything, including their skin and fur. They get a woolly coat, matty coat, doesn't shine, it's hard to manage, or it just feels very coarse. We just see from our own experiences the difference between having dogs that were neutered. I told you one was plagued with issues. I wonder how much better it could have been if we left him intact. He did have some behavioural issues when he was younger. We're very good dog parents, and things that he had are like textbook associated with neutering. Because it affects your cognitive abilities, it affects your emotional development, it affects everything. It's not just about physical health, it's mental growth and emotional growth as for them, and that's seriously important. Major impact on my support of leaving dogs intact because of how she is, and my experience of having prior dogs that were spayed and neutered. I just find her at this level. I'm not saying that because she's my dog. I'm saying that because this is a fact and people point it out to me all the time, even people that just meet her. Her awareness is up here when a lot of dogs' awareness are here. Like, a lot of dogs are just kind of, they're cute dogs in their own world, but they're doing their own thing. They're not very, sometimes they don't pay attention to you, or they don't pick up on all of your social interactions with them. It's kind of disconnected, and I get what they mean when that study said that, because I've experienced that with other dogs. But her, nothing can get by her. Everything you do, she's so aware and she's so sensitive to everything you say, how you look at her. She's totally on it. She's completely there. She's with it. It's kind of freaky in a way, but she's with it. And it's very sweet. She just does things that I've never seen other dogs do. She's really empathetic. She's very just advanced. There's just no other word for it. She's just on another level. She kind of disproves other theories about dogs. Like that study that said dogs' emotional or intelligence level was that of a 2 or 3 year olds, which kind of has been debunked because it was a very small study and it wasn't really accurate. Every dog is different. You can't group all dogs into the same emotional and intelligence level. You get stupid dogs, you get intelligent dogs, like people. You get stupid people, you get intelligent people. You can't say all dogs are just going to be one way and all dogs are going to be the same level of intelligence. That's not true at all. Yeah, of course, that may be a fact as well. She's just naturally really, really intelligent. But she's also got all the strength. She even has a lot of pug friends that are slowing down at her age at 4 years old. They're just not as active, or they're already experiencing physical issues, hip issues, joint issues, things like that are common with neutering and spay. She has 0 issues. Just like a spring. Her legs are super strong. Everything is super strong. She's so freaking full of vitality. I'm some videos after this, and please read, please do your research. And I just say that because it's very sad that a lot of animals have to suffer because of this common, widespread, extreme
belief that we have in America. It's not really fair either that dog parents who choose not to do it are looked down upon. Oh, you're irresponsible. The thing is, I feel like a lot of dog parents who do not do it are the most responsible, and they've chosen not to do it because they'd rather parent their dog and they want what's best for the dog, so they're going to go the extra mile. We change her diapers, we wash them, we make sure she's fine, we make sure she's locked down, she's 4, she's never had an issue, not pregnant. We're really responsible. And yeah, that's it. That's all it comes down to. So anyway, tell me what you think. Please share your thoughts or opinions. Have you had personal experiences of intact or neutered or spayed dogs? And I would love to hear your stories. So share them below. And I hope you all have a great night. Bye-bye.